can come to the front so that we can finalize their submission. Guys at the back, are you ready? Can we start? We will now resume after the short lunch adjournment. And at this stage, we will put some questions to representatives of SANCO following their presentation. Yeah, at this stage, Mr. Tladi and Mr. Mota, we will put some questions to you based on your submission. But before we do that, Mr. Mota, I don't know whether there's anything that you'd like to emphasize or to add to the presentation made by Ms. Tladi. All right. I think you have heard from the submission that was made by the Mpumalanga Provincial Department of Transport, as well as from the presentation which was made by Thembaletu Bus Services, as well as the presentation which was made by the Great North Commuter Organization, that there appears to be, according to the submission made to us, there appears to be some challenges in the monitoring of the services provided by commuter bus operators. For instance, when their buses are a no-show, or when the buses do not adhere to their scheduled times. What I would like to hear from you is whether there is a way in which commuters can be involved in the monitoring process, in terms of to ensure that the subsidized commuter bus operators meet their service delivery requirements in terms of the contracts, the subsidy contracts that they have currently with the Provincial Department of Transport. Is there a way of integrating commuters to be part of the monitoring mechanism of the service delivery requirements of these contracts? Because currently the system appears to rely heavily on self-monitoring by bus companies themselves, and to some extent the department itself did indicate that there is some form of monitoring which they are doing. But is there a way of bringing in and integrating commuters as part of the monitoring mechanism? For instance, the provincial department explained that as part of the payment requirements, there are a number of documents which they require from the service providers as part of the payment processes, which include, in some instances, certificates from an external auditor in order to monitor performance in terms of the contract. Could the commuter aspects be integrated? Is it something that is possible in the light of all these complaints and concerns that we have heard from commuters in relation to the quality of the service provided by the subsidized bus operators?
Can I answer? Okay, thank you, Chairperson. As Isanko advocating for Abahlali, in brackets, commuters, we are all commuters because we're using the public transport. It's part of our plan for the bilaterals with all the stakeholders involved in the transport sector. We have never had talks. I mean, that is an honest answer. We have never had talks, but it's part of our plans that we are going to have talks, bilateral talks with all the stakeholders involved in the transport sector so that we can iron out all those challenges. We have started in our respective villages to establish our SANCO branches where we can hear the challenges faced by our communities. In each and every branch, we have sectors. We have people who are responsible for transport, people who are responsible for other things. So in terms of the transport, we have part of the Ehlanzeni region, we have planned to have bilaterals with all the stakeholders so that we can iron out in terms of monitoring, in terms of pricing, in terms of all of these things that affects, because it affects us directly as Abahlali, as commuters. We in our collective, we have people who have experience in transport, we have experience in auditing, as we have a database of all those people in our branches. So we can still use them because people are dynamic people, they have their own minds, they can think for advices and other things. So in our plans, when we are going to have bilaterals with them, we envisage that we're going to come up with a solid monitoring tool that can be able to help us. Because it also touches us when somebody is waiting in a taxi bus stop for almost an hour, the bus is not there, and there's no communication. Hence, we said in our presentation that we still have to involve the GCIS so that they can educate and have pamphlets. And maybe the the transport sector will have to communicate with us when they're on strikes, when they're on what, so that we can all will be in the same path. Maybe my colleague will add.
Thank you very much, Chair. Our gratitude for the food. It has to start with the legislation. That's why when we say there should be a subsidization across buses and taxis, so that there is a clause well legislated that speaks to monitoring, so that we, as SANCO, when we go to question that aspect, we question the issue of adherence, compliance. Because bus industries and taxi industries, perhaps having identified this to be a problem, a hindrance, to an extent that it makes commuters to arrive a bit late to where they are working, perhaps, we have to make sure that we guard against, service providers that are unable to adhere to the laws of this country. That is why we're saying there should be a subsidy across. Therefore, there should be also a law that which is stipulated that speaks to, the monitoring. There should be a kind of inclusive kind of a debate as to how is this law going to come about and so on. I think it has to start there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, what is Sanko's views on the submissions made by the minibus taxi industry? And the submission is that instead of subsidizing a mode of transport, in the case of Mpumalanga, it will be commuter buses. Instead of subsidizing a mode of transport, the subsidy should rather be reconfigured and redesigned such that the subsidy actually goes to the commuter instead of the subsidy going to a specific mode of transport. Do you have any thoughts on this? Do you think it's something that can work?
Okay. We have never thought about that. We just heard it and we were talking about it when we were sitting down listening to them. But I think if we can, as much as I said, we need to have talks with them, get their reasons. Why are they saying so? Why are they, okay, they see the negatives and the positives of subsidizing the commuters and the subsidizing the transport sector. So maybe from that we can deduce, then say, okay, this is the stance that we are taking. But for now, we have never thought about that.
Mm. Yeah, because the context of the submission, as I understand it, is that the transport costs which are incurred by commuters to commute to work, those transport costs arise as a result of the legacy of apartheid spatial planning, which resulted in workers staying very large distances from their places of work. So that is the legacy of apartheid that we have inherited. So workers are then obliged to then incur these transport costs because of these apartheid special planning issues. So that is why then the intervention that is being proposed is a direct subsidy to the commuter who is staying away from their places of work as a result of the special apartheid special planning issues.
Well, the responsibility of government and that of private sectors. Government makes laws, even issue licenses and so on. And then this on the other side is a service provider. He makes application for as long as he meets the requirements. He therefore awarded a certain certificate for operation. I think that's the basic standard that which all of us must understand. I become a service provider because I do have all the facilities that can be utilized by the commuters. I think we'll have to differ a bit if you were to subsidize, the other part other than the service provider that must adhere to the laws. So our position into that one, I think, is to apply logically the problem-solving skill so that there's common understanding in terms of approach and so on. Henceforth, the bilateral kind of an intervention, and inclusive ones, will help almost everybody to perhaps arrive into a conclusion that takes us, all of us, forward. Because at the end of the day, it's about providing a better and quality service, and there's no one getting affected at the same time.
Maybe for us as Sanco, we're looking at almost everything. I will say it's not about subsidizing the commuters per se, but when we look at the industries vis-a-vis the distance that they have to travel. Obviously, I'm from Komas, there's only one big company around Malelane, that is TSB. Just think of someone who's traveling from Buzini to Malelane. It's very far. Then it has to do with industrialization, bringing industries closer to our communities. It will also reduce the traveling part, because the money that they use for traveling, it also takes the money of the households, as it is stated here. So it has to involve so many things. It doesn't involve the taxi industry only, it has to involve even global markets, spatial development, where companies, special economic zones, for that matter, so that people can be able to work closer to their homes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Tladi and Mr. Mota, for taking the time to prepare your presentation, as well as the recommendations that you have made. And thank you as well for coming and for a very insightful presentation that you gave. Thank you very much. You are excused. We will now receive a presentation from the South African National Small Business Operators Council, Bus Operators Council, which is based here in Mpumalanga. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you very much for coming and for your time. There is a piece of paper in front of you. You may take the oath or the affirmation. You can read the oath or the affirmation. Please switch on the mic as you do so. The mic, yes.
I start with the oath.
Yes, it's fine.
I, Soropan Sinyanalton Petty, swear that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you very much, Mr. Petty. You may hand over the piece of paper to your colleague to also do the same. Yeah.
I, Solomon Strong.
Please, if you can just switch on the mic.
I, Solomon Strong, swear that I advise that I shall give shall be truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hlongwe. If you could start, Mr. Mpete and Mr. Hlongwe, by just explaining what the South African National Small Bus Operators Council is, who do you represent, how many members do you have, and then you can then explain what your current role is within your organization.
Thank you, Chair. We are members of the Executive Committee of South African National Small Bus Operators in Mpumalanga. We have 4 regions, and the membership that we have in the province is not the exact figure that I'll give you, but we have plus minus 150 members.
Throughout the Mpumalanga province?
Throughout the province, yes. The problem is that we have dual membership with other organizations like Saboa, Santago, that are competing with us in the bus industry. But I can say we are currently doing very, very well. The only problem that we have is the finance to travel throughout the province to make sure that we give information to our people. We have 4 regions in this province. The first one is Bohlabela. The second one is Ehlanzeni. The third one is Khersibande. The fourth one is Nkangala. Can I continue?
Yeah, you may continue with your presentation.
Okay. In 1996, the Mpumalanga government introduced the scholar transport, which was functioning under the Department of Education. The objective of the scholar transport was to transport learners to schools around the province, whereby children should travel more than 5 kilometers. There are children who are residing in the rural areas, in the farms, attending schools in the township, or you'll find that from where they stay is far away from the school that has been established there. An advertisement was placed for a shorter period, and small bus operators were appointed at the end of the term. Sometimes we had a negotiated contract. Though rates were low, but we believe they were better than today. From 1996, the Department of Education was paying the operators 20 cents per kilometer per learner until the year 2008, where the rate was increased slightly to 35 cents per kilometer per learner. And in 2009, the scholar transport function was moved from the Department of Education to the Department of Public Works, Roads and Transport. In 2011, the government placed an advert in 4 regions: Bohlabela, Ehlanzeni, Nkangala, and Khersibande. In Bohlabela and Nkangala regions, individual operators were appointed, and also Ehlanzeni. But in Bohlabela region, a bigger chunk was given to a contractor called Chawe Transport. It's coming from Eastern Cape. They overlooked bus operators who were around Bohlabela. And in Khersibande region, the whole operation was given to Habana Trading as a sole service provider. That time, Habana did not even have a single bus. Then the former Premier, Mr. Didi Mabuza, negotiated with the Executive Committee of Mpumalanga Scholar Transport Organization MSTO to sign a memorandum of understanding with Habana Trading. The MSTO members were made to believe that Habana Trading came in to manage scholar transport function. When Habana Trading was first appointed, the Department of Public Works, Roads and Transport said Habana Trading will be a management company. Habana Trading paid bus operators a very, very small amount of money, 53,000 per bus per month. And again, Habana promised that it's going to give an annual increase of 6% to the operators. Till today, Habana is still paying our operators 53,000 rand. Then Habana was then able to buy buses because Habana was the first company with Chawe to be given 5 years contract in this province. And we had a problem. We said, why Habana? Then they said those buses will be given to SGBs, school governing bodies, after 5 years. 5 years has passed, no school received a single bus. It is unfortunate that Mpumalanga provincial government is currently competing with small bus operators because we were told by the former MEC for Public Works, Roads and Transport, Ms. Manzini, that those buses that are with Habana and Chawe are government buses. We currently have small bus operators who are still being owed by the Department of Public Works, Roads and Transport, Department of Education, and Habana, the company. Currently, government in this province has given Habana Trading 60% of scholar transport function in Gersibande. And they only advertised 40% of the work. The advert closed on the 30th of April in Gersibande, and it closed on the 17th of April for Wahlabela, Ehlanzeni, and Ngangala. And up to so far, no one has been awarded a contract from that tender. We believe that the government may be delaying the whole process in order to return and make a re-advertisement because their preferred candidates in alliance with government, I think they were here yesterday, Santiago, they acted fraudulently by having a separate box, sunlight box, to submit their documents. Fortunately, we went to the Hawks, we reported the matter, and the inquiry number is 02/05/2018, where the box was found in the office of the Chief Director, Public Works, Mr. Moloi. As the South African small bus operators, we would like to put on record that Habana Trading and Chawe Transport are not welcomed in this province. Reason being that Habana Trading is owned by 3 directors not residing in this province. One is from KZN, the other one is from Limpopo, Guyane, and the other one is from Zimbabwe. And Chawe Transport is owned by a director coming from Eastern Cape. In the Ngangala region, people from Gauteng and Northwest were appointed to do scholar transport duties, overlooking the bus operators, and were eventually taken out of work. In Ehlanzeni region, friends of the government officials were appointed, whilst the small bus operators were taken out of work. As the small bus operators, we are not recognized by the Mpumalanga provincial government, for there are no consultations where stakeholders meet to discuss challenges and frustration in the industry. Our province uses the top-down approach, care less of whatever frustrations we might be having in the industry. We have Habana Trading, which is our rivals because government sneaked them in the province, lying to us, and has been given preferential treatment at the expense of small bus operators. We have Santago as another rival of bus operators. They are contesting the power from the small bus operators to an extent that they have established a bus desk operators to an extent that they have to establish a bus desk within their organization where they have people that are dealing with scholar transport. And we are not interfering in their operation, in the taxi operation. We don't have any bus or any taxi desk in our offices. So Santago is sure that they will take over the bus operations in this province. Mbombela is the only municipality or place in this province with BRT system is scheduled to start soon. Sanspok has not been involved in any negotiations with the Mbombela municipality in this project. We do have long-distance passes traveling from Ngangala, Khersiba and the regions to Ida Maputo, Durban, and Eastern Cape. The mines, Eskom, Forestry, Transnet, and some private companies do render bus contract services in the province. We do not have municipal buses in our province. We only have private buses. As far as the subject matter is concerned, we currently have a major challenges with regard to licensing. There are no routes allocation, no operating licenses, and no transformation. In essence, there is virtually nothing happening in this regard. There is no price regulation. The price is controlled by fuel hikes, and when there is reduction in fuel prices, the price remains the same, which is disadvantage to the commuters. And again, there is nothing structured here. Operational subsidies are enjoyed by the bigger operations like Great North, transporting commuters from Bushbuckridge to Nelspruit, Megabus around Khersibande in Segunda, Basco around Ehlanzene, Tilly's Bus around Khersibande, Patco from Kwandebele to Gauteng, Pretoria. And there are other bus companies that are subsidized around Wheatbank. Both the provincial government and the municipalities are failing dismally in this area of transport planning because there is absolutely nothing happening in this regard. That is why one finds that most of our roads are in a very bad condition with big potholes, and other villages one cannot have access to go in with a small car. And this inconveniences us as bus operators to service our communities. Transformation in the public transport remains a pipe dream in this province. Currently, there is no consultation with all stakeholders to be able to forge a way forward. Access to infrastructure and terminal facilities are minimal, if any, from both government and the private sector. We operate in silos, and we attribute this to lack of stakeholder consultation. Contracting relating to bus operations, long-term contracts which have not been subjected to competitive bidding for a long time. We never had this in this province, and no attempt was made in this regard. What has been happening is that service providers were given shorter periods to operate, whether after you may have a negotiated contract again for a shorter period. I just want to share this with you, Chairperson. I want to go back to scholar transport because that is the only source of income that we are getting as Africans, black people in this province. When we talk about a sunlight box, people might not understand what we are talking about. Santago in this province, they had an agreement, an illegal agreement with government that they were going to be given 40% stake, then Habana must have 60. Then when people tendered, they went to the centers to put in their tender documents. But Santago decided to call our members and their members to put in 2 boxes. And instead of submitting those tenders to the relevant tender centers, they did not do that until we caught them. And currently, the department is having a problem to award because the people that they wanted to appoint failed to submit to the right door. That is the problem that we are having. The problem that we are having in this province is corruption. People are talking about Northwest being a corrupt province. That is not true. This is #1 province, corrupt province, Mpumalanga. And we can give evidence about that. But it's just that because some of our people are afraid to tell the truth, they will be killed. But we are now telling you the truth. This is the most corrupt province in this country. #1, corrupt province. Our commuters have a problem. They wait for a longer period for transport. We have a problem whereby companies where people must start to work 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. If there is no subsidized bus company to transport them, they suffer. Some are being raped, some are being robbed. That is the problem that we are having. Chairperson, I just want to say, as small bus operators, we don't have a budget. And we are not the ones who came with this name Sanspok. This name Sanspok was established by the National Minister of Transport. I think it was during the time of former Minister Gipo Peters. And all 9 provinces, we do have provincial executive committees. Unfortunately, we are operating from our houses or from our cars. We don't have offices. But if you go to Santago, they have 4 offices in the province. They are being given allowances, and we are getting nothing. No training to our executive committee members, no meeting allowance, nothing. We are suffering simply because people that are elected to lead to lead Sanspok in this province are not favorites of the government officials. That is the problem that we are having. We are suffering. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, very much for that presentation, Mr. Petty. Mr. Hlongwe, I don't know whether there's anything you wish to add.
Yes, the other thing which I want to...
Please switch on the mic.
The other thing that I want to add, I think the government must look to treat as equal the small bus operators and the big service provider. If they give, maybe let me say they give PASCO 10 years, because since when I was born, I found PASCO and PATCO was running the transport. To us as a small bus operators, we only find out they give us 3 months. We are not going to grow if they give us 3 months. And the other thing, as the local people, they must give us that chance when we write the tender to send to the department and approve our document, because we have the equipment. But because the government is not favoring us, they give their friends and their girlfriends. To us, it's not right. They must treat us as equal. Here in Hlanzeni, you find out the people who is coming at Limpopo and the people who is coming at Eastern Cape running a scholar transport. I have 20 buses standing at the back of my house, and I don't know what must I do. And the bus which I'm using to transport the community when there is funeral around in my area. The people who are staying at Cape Town is not sending the people to help even the ANC when it's busy mobilizing the people to get the vote from the people. So we are saying to the department, please empower the people around the area first. And then if there is nothing, maybe they do not have the equipment, and then you can go and look around the other province. Please, we are saying, because Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa promised us to change the South Africa, can the ANC come and help us? Because here, as a small business, we are not getting from our government. Nothing. Please, I said they must look that we are not getting anything. Thank you.
If you could, before I give an opportunity to the evidence leaders to put questions to you, if you could just clarify because I think, Mr. Mpeti, you had indicated that it seems as if you have now been relegated to mainly servicing the scholar transport segment. I want to understand whether is that the only segment that you are servicing, or there's also a commuter, another commuter segment that you are servicing, which does not involve scholar transportation. If that is the case, are you able to give us a split, just roughly? What is the size of, in terms of the split that is serviced by your members for scholar transportation, and the size of the segment which is serviced for other, if that is so?
Okay. On scholar transport, we can say in the province, our members, we have more than 500 buses that are running, except Habana and Chawe. And other services that we do, as I said, that is only from government, that is scholar transport. The tendered routes we do not have, only big companies have been given that. And the other services that we do is ESCOM, Transnet, and forestry. That is private. So the contract is between the individual and the companies. That's all.
Are you providing any public commuter services which do not involve any of these?
Yeah, we do have members who have buses who are transporting public, but they are not subsidized. Yes. In some areas like in Gersibande, Don Donald to Ermelo, and Tlazadi to Ermelo, and Babaton, we do have those individual operators.
All right. Mr. Lesofo?
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps we could start from your last answer. If you could just perhaps briefly take us through some of the challenges that those operators face, those who provide commuter bus services without any subsidies.
The challenges that we have there is the pricing, because the one that is getting subsidy will charge less and our members will charge more. That is the challenge. So most of the people will then go to a subsidized company. That is the main problem that we have.
So you find it difficult to compete in terms of pricing, right?
Yeah, we cannot compete, and even the maintenance of the buses, you will find that it's difficult for a poor man to maintain his or her bus.
And what is the average age of your members' fleet? The average age of the buses, like I just want to get a sense in terms of they probably use buses that are old, right?
I'm not sure, but what I can tell you is most of our buses are 15 years old. We don't have new buses. We have the Korokoro. That is the problem. But you'll find that those who have money might refurbish their buses, but there are not many. There are not many. That is why we are saying we wanted a recap on buses, that please take away the old buses, as is happening in the taxi industry. So if Mr. Shongo is having 10 buses that are 15 years old, they can give him maybe 200,000 for a deposit for another bus. And even the question of finance, that they organize a finance for our people, because most of our people are blacklisted. It's very, very difficult. It's difficult out there. We do have people who are having better buses, but there are not many. The majority of our people have older buses.
Okay, thanks. Now, the subsidy contracts that are currently in place, right, were introduced in 1997. And since then, they haven't been allocated to any new operators, including your members. So for the past 23 years, you've had the same service providers being given contracts to provide commuter bus services, right? Now, if government were to issue a tender inviting operators with a view to effect some changes by, for instance, bringing in new operators, that is for subsidy contracts, what kind of support would you need in order to participate in that tender process? And also, should your members be some of the successful bidders in order to be able to render the services efficiently and properly? What kind of support would you need?
May I just add to this question? Because we also raised a similar point with the Mpumalanga Provincial Department of Transport about opening up the subsidized commuter transportation market to smaller bus operators, in particular those which are owned by historically disadvantaged individuals. And we raised the issue of whether it is possible to unbundle the current contracts and break them down into much more smaller contracts to enable smaller bus operators to be able to enter the subsidized commuter bus market. So I think we would also like to get your views on the unbundling of these contracts and whether it is possible to break this contract into smaller contracts which can be serviced by smaller bus operators. The second issue that arose related to infrastructure, especially in the form of depots. And we were told that in almost all the provinces, that one of the biggest obstacles to the entry of smaller bus operators in the subsidized commuter bus market is lack of access to infrastructure, especially in the form of depots, because we understand that the current depots are owned by the subsidized bus operators. So in responding to my colleague's question in relation to the form of support that you may require in order to provide a subsidized bus service, please consider these issues which have been raised.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I think what we need, one, is training. That is key. Two, as San spoke, in each and every tendered route, we would appreciate if government can give us 51% of the operation. Let's say you have Basco around Mbombela. If they can say, out of 100 routes that are there, then 51% should be given to small bus operators, that will be appreciated. But how do you do that? It's going to be difficult for our members to buy buses, but they can buy buses that are currently used by Basco. So we enter into memorandum of understanding with Basco. And then we go to Segunda, we talk to Megabus, they give us 51%. We do it that way so that we can also control even the inflow of the people that want to participate, especially the youth and the women, because it's going to be difficult for a young person just to come in and say, I want to be an operator. But if they can join us and work with us so that they learn from us, they take this process forward, I think that will help us a lot. Yes, Chair.
In this question relating to lack of access to depot infrastructure, how can that be resolved?
That one I don't think is a problem, because we can, with the little resources that we have, we can establish our own depots. But again, the same bus companies that we are talking about, they also have their own depots that they use, which we can still buy from them, that we continue. Because if they have one, and then we come and build ours next to theirs, and then theirs is no longer going to work, then that will be waste of resources. So we can negotiate.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Ngobeni?
No questions, Chair.
Ms. Nondomban?
My question relates to the issuing of operating licenses. And I wanted to get a sense of what your experience has been with regards to the issuing of operating licenses.
The problem with issuing of operating licenses, as we talked about scholar transport, they give an operator 3 months. So you go there, you apply for operating license, it will be for 3 months. Then after 3 months, you must go again and pay. And if maybe you transport people, what they will need a contract or a letter as proof that indeed you are allowed to operate those people. So it's a challenge in our province operating license. And we always have to go to the department, plead with them, please help us. And even the traffic officers will come there and harass the drivers that they do not have operating licenses. Or they will delay to issue that 6 months or 3 months contract, and you cannot stop. So you will always get fines on the road. So it's a big challenge in our province.
And then another question I have is with regards to the issue you raised about a lack of proper consultation with the small bus operators. And I wanted to get a sense of whether, in relation to the IPTN that is being introduced, you have been consulted at all, and whether you are considered to be affected parties on the routes that will be affected by the introduction of the IPTN.
Sir, can you repeat the question?
So the government is introducing IPTN, so like your BRT, but not quite like it has been implemented, for example, in Gauteng. So the question I have is whether you are considered to be affected parties as small bus operators in the implementation of the IPTN here in the province.
Yeah, that one will be appreciated. I mean, if we can just be called in the meetings that they explain that to us, because a person will talk about BRT, something that we do not even know. As we said, this is the first town or municipality in the province that is going to have BRT. So we would appreciate if the municipality and the provincial government can invite us and we can participate and make a contribution.
Okay. Just for clarity, are your members operating in the routes that have been identified for the implementation of the IPTN?
We can just make examples of some of those routes, just to add to my colleague's question. For instance, phase 1 is from Hazy View to Barberton. So the question then is, are you servicing that route currently? There are also other phases, such as from Nelspruit in town to Kabokweni, and there's also phase 3, which is from, and it goes on and on. So are you servicing these routes which have been identified for the rollout of the IPTN by the city of Mbombela?
Mr. Shongwe is from this municipality. I'm from Gersibande. But we do have our members who are servicing those routes. But a person who can give more information about that is Mr. Shongwe. But we do have our members servicing those routes. It could be in a form of transporting staff passengers going to different companies, but we do have our members doing those routes.
Yes, we transport the staff. We transport sometimes the staff. If maybe, let me say, there is a contract maybe around Barberton or around Nelspruit, they are using to hire our buses, the people who are trying to empower the black people or to empower a small bus operators. They are using to hire our buses in this route around Ehlanzeni. For example, I am around Ehlanzeni district. We use Barberton as a view to transport the people we are going to affect it in this area when the Ria Vaya came and transport the people.
Have you been identified by the city as an affected,
No.
as affected operators?
No.
Okay, just two questions from my side. I think one of the things that we have now understand from other provinces is that the small bus operators need to almost form some kind of a vehicle operating company for them to be able to successfully tender for government contracts. For instance, I think this is a theme that we have been hearing from other provinces. I just want to get a sense from Mpumalanga whether, is there any thoughts, because you also as an industry, you have to make it relatively easier for government to contract or to participate, in these tendered contracts. So I just want to get a sense of whether is there a move towards, trying to prepare yourselves to be able to tender for this. So again, one of the avenues is these vehicle operating companies.
Yeah, we are willing to do that. Like when we meet at national level, you go to, you listen to a province like Eastern Cape. They are very, very far. And as in Mpumalanga, we want to do that, but because, as we said earlier, we do not have support from our provincial government, it's difficult, but it's our wish. We want to.
But I think the question is on I think the position of the government, I think we heard what they have said, but I'm talking about from your members, because you have to, I'm asking whether you have thought about this and what is the status, if you have thought about maybe trying to form a structure so that you prepare yourself for government, for contracted tenders.
Yeah, as I've said, we are copying from the model that is used by the Eastern Cape, that we go to IDC to help us. But if we go to IDC, obviously, that is our wish as members. But we need to be guided, we need training, we need the directorate to help us, to give us guidance of how to do it. We don't know where to start, but we want to.
Okay, no, thank you.
Are you getting or have you been offered any subcontracting opportunities by the current bus, subsidized bus operators?
No.
Yeah, I think we have come to the end of this session. Thank you very much, Mr. Mpeti and Mr. Hlongwe, for your time and for your presentation. We will certainly take up the issues that you have raised this afternoon with the relevant stakeholders, including the Provincial Department of Transport. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have now come to the end of the public hearings in Mpumalanga. We will, however, be making follow-ups on the issues which have been raised in this province with the relevant stakeholders. So we would like to thank everybody who has participated in this round of sessions in Mpumalanga, and we'll also like to thank members of the public who took their time to attend these hearings. The next round of hearings will be in the Northern Cape province in Kimberley on the 19th of July. We will adjourn and close the hearing, and I'm told that there is tea available, which will be served at the same point where we had lunch earlier. Thank you very much.